Hello guys, I'm looking at your study guide that I gave you today. It's also in Teams. I'm only going to work through a couple of the problems that I think might throw some people off tomorrow on the test. The first one was number 10. So let's work through number 10 together. I've got negative 2 plus 4/5 x equals 6, okay? So I see that I have 4/5 times x, and I also see I have a negative 2 over here. I want to get the x by itself, so I'm going to start by getting rid of the constant. The opposite of negative 2 is positive 2, so that's just 0. And I have to do the same thing on this side. So now I have 4/5 x equals 8. Okay? So one thing I want you to remember with these fractions is to get rid of a fraction, you multiply by the reciprocal. The reciprocal is what we call the thing when we flip it. So times 5/4 on both sides. Because 4 times 5 would be 20. 5 times 4 would be 20. So this is just 20/20ths x, or 1x. Well, I can cross cancel here to make it super easy. This is just 2, and this is 1, because 4 divided by 4 is 1, and 8 divided by 4 is 2. When I multiply straight across, that would be 10 over 1, so 10. If you chose not to cross cancel at the beginning, you can say 8 times 5 is 40, and 1 times 4 is 4, and 40 divided by 4 is also 10, okay? So x equals 10. The biggest things to remember here is use inverse operations to get rid of your constants first. If you have a fraction being multiplied with a variable, you can use the reciprocal to get rid of the fraction on both sides. Yep. And then also we cross canceled. So there's some things to remember there. I'm going to show you one more problem. At least. Let's take a look at this. Number, let me see, the one that caused us a little bit of trouble. Let's take a look at number 12, because it has 2 fractions, and that scares people sometimes. I've got half times x equals 5/6, okay? Just a moment ago, we talked about getting rid of fractions. Well, how are we going to get rid of that fraction? I'm going to multiply by the reciprocal. 2 over 1, 2 over 1. So I've got x here, because these would make just 1, 2 over 2. And I've got 10 over 6 here. That's one way to do it. I can cross cancel at the beginning. So divide this by 2, I get 1. Divide this by 2, I get 3. So that'd be 5/3. We can see that 10/6 and 5/3 are equivalent. I'm not going to leave my answer like this though. I'm going to turn it into a mixed number. I know that 5/3 is the same thing as 3/3 plus 2/3. Well, 3/3 is 1 whole and 2/3 left over. Okay? If that's something you struggle with, you can always use long division. 5, top dog goes in the house, divided by 3 goes in 1 time, and I have 2 left over, so 2/3. This is your denominator. My low back is in real pain right now because I overdid it on my bike and exercise yesterday. So I'm sorry that I'm not turning as much. I hope that the camera can still hear. Okay, let's do some with inequalities. Let's take a look at, 15 is another one that I want you guys to see. 15 is 5/6 times x plus 4 equals 15. Okay, well, if I use the reciprocal to get rid of this fraction, I'm going to multiply by the reciprocal. 6/5. So this would just cross out to be 30/30ths, or 1 whole. So I've got one group of x plus 4 equals, This one I'm going to cross cancel. It makes it easier for me. So 5 divided by 5 is 1, and 15 divided by 5 is 3. 3 times 6 is 18 over 1, so equals 18. Finally, my last step is to get rid of the positive 4. So I'm going to subtract 4 on this side, so all I have left is x, and subtract 4 on this side, and all I have left is 14. X equals 14. All right, so number 16, let's take a look at number 18. Yeah. Actually, I want to take a look at number 19 first. So I've got number 19 at 2/3 times a equals, or plus 6 is greater than 0. So I'm going to read that again. 2/3 times a plus 6 is greater than 0. That 0 throws people off sometimes as well. Once again, I'm going to get rid of my constant first. So minus 6 on this side and minus 6 on this side. I've got 2/3 a left over here because that's just 0. I keep my sign the same. And if I'm at 0 and I take away 6, I land at -6. Okay? So I have 2/3 times a. To get rid of this fraction, I'm going to multiply by the reciprocal. All right. And I've got a is greater than, well, -6 times 3 is -18. And 1 times 2 is 2. -18 divided by 2 is -9. So a is greater than -9. Now to graph that on an unmarked number line, I would put -9. I know it's an open circle because it doesn't have the equal to sign. The solution will not work. A is greater than -9, so all the numbers greater than -9 are going to be on the right side, on the positive side. Okay. So that was number 19. That was a two-step inequality. I'm going to go back to 18 because it has something you need to remember. 18 has a negative involved with it, so y divided by -2 is less than or equal to 3. The reason why I wanted to work on 18 is because, first of all, this is a fraction, so y divided by -2, seeing this fraction as division. The opposite would be multiplied by -2 on both sides. So this would cancel, you've got 1, and you've got -6. Whenever you multiply or divide by a negative number, you need to flip the sign. So y is greater than or equal to -6. Because the negative values were on this side, but whenever we had to multiply by the negative, that -2 divided by -2 is a positive 1y. And now we've got +3 times -2, that's a -6. So the negatives have switched sides, so you have to flip the sign. So once again, when you multiply or divide by a negative number, you need to flip the sign. To graph this, I put -6 here. I'm going to use a closed circle because -6 will work. It's part of the solution because it says equal to. And it says y is greater than or equal to -6, so I'm going to go to the right. Remember that the big side opens up toward the greater than. So y is greater than -6. The alligator is going to eat the bigger fish. Okay, so now we're looking at, I think that actually pretty well covers everything that you might struggle with on the test tomorrow. So I'll stop it there. Hopefully that helps you guys out. This will be in Teams.